I was recording. I was trying to get all prettified, but I guess if you stay ready, you ain't gotta get ready. That's the phrase. So the collar on my shirt is a little loose. Oh no, I'm worried about vanity too much. Anyway, so this is my first failed upload. Well, it was my first failed upload, so I'm gonna redo the video and put it up because I think this is one of my best. This is my favorite episode so far in the Breaking Bad series. This is episode 3 in season 3. It's titled FT. No, it's yeah. What is it? No, it's IFT. IFT, which I should have figured out what that meant, but I didn't. So okay. Um, and I probably should have went back over the episode trying to remember everything that happened in it. But the only thing that sticked out, and I can still remember to right now, is uh the shift that happens in Mrs. White's character. She goes from she starts out she starts out from being like a kind of like a docile but yet firm housewife to this eloquent 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 much more like you're more aware of her presence as she stands in the series, and she just stands out more, a lot more. Like she has a lot more oomph to her, a lot more spice, a lot more kick. The character does. Now this episode uh, uh, is a little bit better than the last one. The last one was, if I can remember, the last one was a setup episode, but those episodes they serve a purpose to set things up down the line. Now this one takes you on it involves trying to get my wording right. This one involves Mr. White, Mrs. White, of course. Junior comes into this one, Pinkman, and the brother-in-law. So I'll just start off with the brother-in-law. So the brother-in-law, um, he's self-sabotaging at this point because if you can remember in earlier episodes, he's still dealing with having to take somebody's life, like in like a couple seasons ago, and also just being part of like an explosion where people were missing limbs and also uh, died. That could do a lot to a person, based, even if it is fiction based. But they do a good job of bringing it out. He's trying to self sabotage because he's just got the great news that he's going to be transferred back to to that area where he just witnessed that massive explosion. Um, because for some reason after that, well, basically, it seems like he lost that office lost a majority of its people, so in turn he has to get sent back to his old station. But now he's got the great news that he's going to get to go back over there, so he creates an act of self sabotage. You see it a lot in you see self sabotage a lot in people who haven't had um, or who haven't been around too much success. Personally, myself, I suffered from it when I was a couple years ago when I was a little bit younger, but I've recently gotten over it. I've just you had to come to a point to realize you had to come to realize like you deserve what you have and you need to grab it, seize it, and take hold of it. Best way I could put it. But anyway, this character is dealing with that, and I think they do a great job of making that visual. Bringing that to life. They do a great job of that. I'm really in love with this character's arc, and I want to see where it goes. Um, Now, I'm gonna speak on Junior a little bit. He doesn't have many. He's very vocal, even though he can't be overly vocal, but he's very vocal about his mother and father being separated. Now, I was in his position in real life. I am a product of a divorce. Not product. Should I say product? Well, yeah, I'm a product of a divorce. So I can feel for that character. I can bond with that character in that sense. Um, for so long, you go for so long without either parent giving you enough information. They give you just enough information to satisfy your little brain in some way, and the information they tend to give strengthens their argument, which is pretty bad because you don't want to have a kid torn between two people because you can't even find uh, you can't even come to common ground. I mean, unless there's severe verbal or physical abuse or some type of active controlling that's involved in it. If it's not that and it's something that's deemed to be petty, you shouldn't be trying to spin that child's head around in circles trying to figure out which way is right. Anyway, I'm going a little bit too personal, but um, I like Junior stepping up in there. I like seeing that character's take on it. I love seeing that character's take on it. Now, see who else I want to talk about. Oh yeah, Mr. White. Let's just talk about him. He's almost murdered in a very theatrical way by those sets of twins. But now that I think about it, the two twins that appeared earlier in an earlier episode, not two twins, the twins that appeared in the early episode, they're not. I don't think they're twins. They might be two actors that look really similar, or they might be brothers, but they're not twins. Or identical twins anyway. Um, but yeah, he almost dies. Well, they almost hack him to death with an axe, like a decorative axe, which is it's like TV movie magic type stuff that you really can't catch unless you know what a real axe looks like. I mean, not saying that a real axe has to be worn and like rugged looking, but that's a decorative piece. That's something that's like an axe that gets put on a mantle in like a fire captain's man cave or something like that. Because it's like chrome plated and all that good stuff. Not saying that it won't do any damage, but I'm just saying it's not really it's not a realistic axe. Put it like that. But anyway, I'm nitpicking at this point. Yeah, he almost gets murdered. But he gets the that gets called off by his biggest uh, biggest customer, and then at this point he's indebted to him without Mr. White even knowing he's indebted to him. And Mr. White is pretty much fed up about not living in his own home, so he decides to move back home. But of course, the wife's not happy about that, and instead of them getting into some big argument, him trying to and her trying to kick him out, she calls the authorities. They come, but legally they can't do anything. It starts getting all these technicalities, which is pretty, you know, it's you think it's good, it's pretty bad, but then Mr. White does he makes another fatal mistake. I don't know why I say fatal, but he makes another mistake. He just keeps opening his mouth and spilling out more and more information. He shows her all the money that he's bought after he's already told her how he's acquired the money. He shows her all the money. God, and I think Mr. White does the actor who plays Mr. White does a great job of portraying the everyman. If I just explain, trying to find this way out of a tough situation. If I just explain myself, she'll understand and come back to me. It's not going to work like that because you've crossed a moral line that she's grasped on as an adult. You crossed that line, and she doesn't she doesn't feel the same way about you anymore. But he can't see that, so he's trying everything in his. Even though he's quite an intelligent man, when it comes to female male relationships, the man is always the simpler of the two. You know what? Maybe I should live a little bit more life before I say that, but I feel like in most cases that's true. In most cases. But there are men who are equal to women in a problem solving sense. I could put it that way. And there are women who are equal to men in a problem solving sense. Every individual is different, of course, but I feel like the woman usually prevails in situations as such. But But the best part of it all is, Mrs. White decides to do something out of spite. She decides to, as the kids call it, smash her employer. And she comes back home pretty late that night. By this time, Mr. White's made dinner. He's cooking everything up, and he starts blabbing and going on and on about. He feels like he's had a victory, so he's trying to win her over even more by telling her everything's gonna be fine, everything's gonna be good. She lets him talk, you know. She lets him continue to blab. She gets closer to him, until they're like a countertop away from one another. She's looking him in the face at this point. He's still going on, and he catches himself and sees her right there, and he looks at her. She's looking at him in the face. She says, "Hey, I smashed my boss." Oh, the delivery on that was so good. It threw me back. Like, oh man, that was rough to watch. And that was the end of the episode. Oh man, that was the end of the episode. It was a great ending. It's great delivery, really good delivery. But I don't want to forget about Pinkman. Now, Pinkman in this particular episode, he comes back. Now, his parents aren't keeping up their end of the bargain. Because if you remember in an earlier episode, when he was kicked out of his aunt's house, they said, if you get your life together, you can come back and move in. But guess what? They pour money into that property and decide to sell it. But Pinkman buys it. He buys it, but he buys it with all the money he has. Um, coughing. He decides to buy that property. It's so gratifying watching him in that scene walk up to the door, and his parents are talking back and forth with one another like, what are we going to do? We have to get rid of him. Wait a minute, stop. Excuse me. Wait a minute, stop. Proper etiquette, cough into your elbow. It's like, wait, stop. Can't go in there. The new owner's coming. He's like, yeah, I know. I'm the new owner. And they're sitting there left dumbfounded. And he gets to open the door, look back at him, and doesn't slam it, closes it softly. So rewarding watching that. Especially seeing how his character throughout the whole episode wasn't saying much of anything, but he was calling. He was calling that girl that died in a few episodes back. This character was really in love with that character. He was calling her cell phone just to hear her her voice uh, as the voicemail prompt. He was calling just to hear that, basically until the bill didn't get paid anymore and the phone got cut off. Which every time he does it, it's just heartbreaking. That one, I felt like I was walking side by side with Pinkman on that one. That was hard because I've been in a situation where I couldn't get access to somebody, and you're gonna grasp at anything that you can that gets you a little bit closer to them. Uh, this episode was really good. I wouldn't say it's not. No, I wouldn't say it's not a episode of gore and violence and bad language and all those things. It's a psychological thing. It's only dealing with emotions and how people manipulate one another with emotions. It's all in there. Well, a lot of it's in there. So this is my favorite episode so far.